Hello there, welcome in. I'm Janelle. This is Janelle Art. Let's get started with a pebble drawing, shall we? Oh, I've got a feeling on this one. I think I want a little bit of a wider line for these outlines today, so let's just go with a slightly wider Pigma Micron, the 10. Something about this background just looks a little bit more dramatic, and I think a darker line will get us there. Hope you're doing well today. Just say hello to replay crew out there. I appreciate you guys so much. This exercise is really a pretty effective warm-up for getting started into the day's creative work. So I've got, let's see here, it's a 4-inch square today that we're working on of watercolor paper. It has, I think this one is mostly watercolor. I sometimes use some other media, some Neocolor too, and some gel crayons, and just anything that catches my fancy. We put the color on in, well, I should say, me and the cat. I don't know how much work the cat does, but I put the color on in layers. Hi, Rachel. Good morning. How are you doing this day? Irish Mart. Welcome in. I've been trying to get my studio into working order here for the last hour. Finally just cleared some stuff off and thought, sometimes just getting started, boy, it just could be such a challenge, right? And then I just took a deep breath and hit live, and here we are. Lovely to see you people out there today. I'm hanging in there. This week feels like it was just a bit of a long one. I mean, I think that's a lot of the month of December just simultaneously feels like at the end of the week it feels like, oh, it's just kind of kicked me around, and it's taken a lot out, but the time is also flying by. It's that the paradox of December. So my goal this month has been to try to get live streams going so that we've got a little bit of space to come and talk about art and just hang out with each other. And every time I get a mind to get going, there's an email or a call or just something. Please come do this. Please go do that. And I know I'm not the only one out there going through it. I've been around the sun enough times to realize that this is just the nature of December. The, the way the planet is just tilted on its axis as we're traveling around the sun. In the northern hemisphere, we've got days getting shorter and nights getting longer, and that sense of urgency it's just built into this big spinning rock we're sitting on. So hang in there. What's today? The 13th. Lucky Friday. Yeah, we're just a few days away from the solstice here. A little bit over a week. And then my favorite time of year, the days start getting longer, a few minutes of daylight each day gets added to it, and before you know it, we'll be back to springtime. So we've got some interesting colors working in this one today. We're working on a little ultramarine blue and yellow ochre. And not to get too far ahead of myself, but I've got the paints all set up here. We've got the newly organized palettes. I've got some Daniel Smith granulating watercolors. Oh my golly, look at those paints. We've got paper cut. We've got squares. Was that enough paint? I don't know. I don't know if that's enough paint. Maybe we need more paint. I think we need all the paint. And a stack of things that we've been working on. I say I think of it as a sort of a joint effort when I'm working and folks are in the chat to hang out with. Got a new Primatech color, Minnesota Pipestone from Daniel Smith. It's catlinite, and it's what peace pipes were carved out of. Hello there, Adam. He's asking if I like midnight at 4 p.m. I'm living in Oregon, so at 4 p.m. out here, it's often raining. And raining and dark at 4 p.m. it's not that fun. It's really not, unless you're a duck. I'm not even sure ducks have that much fun in dark, rainy weather. But if there's a clear sky and you can see some stars, I don't object. I'm sort of a nature girly, so. How cold is it? I haven't looked at the thermometer today. It's probably in the 40s here today, but we've had a bit of a cold snap down into the 30s, so. I'm pretty snug in my little hobbit hole here, so it really has to get into the low 20s before I'm suffering, and I'm fortunate in that I have a gas heating stove in the center of my area, so I can always kind of come out to the what other normal people would call their living room, but I have made into my studio, and just fire that thing up, and it gets nice and cozy. So I hope you all are likewise have a cozy place to be. Yeah, let's get it. What's a temperature report? What's it doing there? 26. That's brisk. That's almost enough to put your scarf over your mouth and nose. So I was a skier when I was in college and kind of the late high school era, and so you like a day that's, 15 to 25. It's really crisp and nice, and after you spend time out recreating in it or racing, kind of build up your own heat, and it also just seems like it's an okay thing to spend time out doing stuff in cold weather. That was one of the takeaways from being a skier. Just before that, it's always like, come in, you'll get sick. It's harmful. Don't be outside when it's 20. No, it's okay. It's okay to be outside when it's 20. Just don't, sit on a lawn chair. I saw somebody streaming from Buffalo a couple of days ago, and that looked like they were kind of inundated with lake effect snow, that's a whole different weather pattern, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to switch down to a bit of a smaller nib, and I'll give these rocks some more depth by varying the line width. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit arty and a little out of that usual let's just do only mindfulness jam this morning. Yeah. Maybe we'll get a weather report from somebody in the southern hemisphere, because it should be a whole different story there. I lived in Anchorage for a while, and Adam's saying, midnight at 4 o'clock, and the sun stays, it's slung very low in the sky, and it just sort of comes up over the horizon and makes a low arc in the south. And so, what you want is some nice white snow to bounce what sunlight there is off and brighten things up. But definitely, like, by 3:30, it's just dark. I can remember coming out from work and there'd be just stars in the sky, and definitely a different latitude up there. So I'm hearing rain on the roof today. We've got that nice slap of water. It just drowns out the traffic and any of the nonsensical human activity that goes on. Right now there's a lot of Amazon delivery trucks and people heading off to work and doing their people thing. So Rachel says, I like to hike in cold weather. Oh, Doug Cabot was the best, wasn't he? It was could just have a real twinkle in his eye. Oh, Adam. Yeah. I agree with you, Rachel. If it's a nice clear day and it's a little bit chill, you can just motor down the trail when it's a bit cold. I much prefer uh, a chilly hike than anything where the temperatures are too hot. I don't adapt to the heat as much as I did when I was younger. That's one of the things that can come with aging. So, if you like those hot weather hikes, get them in while you're younger. Actually, I'm an advocate of getting any hikes in you can at any age. My family, oh, this won't be a stereotype at all. I grew up in Oregon, and my family uh, were backpackers. So I've hiked about half of the Pacific Crest Trail that runs through Oregon, and a bit of Washington. I've walked from the Columbia River to the Timberline Lodge on Mount Hood, and then we did this in segments, but from there down south of Sisters, Oregon, it's very near. Sisters it's pretty close to Bend. Bend is kind of, if you look at a map of Oregon, it's about in the middle of it, over east of the Cascades. So I don't know if anybody out there follows any of the through hiker channels, where people just take time off and they try to traverse either the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Coast Trail, or there's another one that runs north-south over the Continental Divide. But I do enjoy watching that sort of human endeavor. All right, I'm rambling. You guys, when I'm rambling, just throw up a comment or two and get me back to something that interests you. I toyed with the idea for a few years of doing the southern part of the Pacific Crest Trail in Oregon, so that I could just fulfill that goal of covering the entire Oregon portion of the trail. And at the time I was putting it together, we had terrible series of wildfires, and portions of the trail were closed off, especially 2020, and areas are still recovering from the fire. So you walk through just miles and miles where the trees are just stripped, and it's pretty exposed. And that didn't sound like a really good time, so we do have to set aside things from time to time, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't have dreams. Feed them and cultivate them. I'm struggling. My hand wants to cover this with circles, but we have some interesting negative spaces here. And I know later when I shuffle back through the little paintings, the ones that have the open spaces seem to be the ones that catch my eye, that I want to pick up and gaze at for a bit of time. So I think it's okay either way. If you feel like you want to just cover the paper with circles, go for it. If you feel like you want to put a scattering of them, that's as good. Got an assortment of Neocolor water-soluble wax pastel crayons here. We haven't seen these guys in a while, so as I was clearing off the workbench, I thought, oh, I bet they're lonely. I want to just get into the art, because they've been left abandoned over there for a couple, 3 weeks, so. They are rhetorical pebbles. I'll have to try to remember that. I think that'd be a good live stream title. This might be a little better than She's Gone Random. I'm learning to trust the process a little bit, even when I don't really need to bring in a whole agenda. I just need to show up. And interesting things manifest. Flo, hi. Good morning, Maya. Or Maya's over in Norway, so I'm guessing it's good evening there. Now we got it cooking. I don't know why I didn't start with watercolor media sooner. It is so easy to work with. And I don't know. I was gonna say, it's something about how it is to master. I don't know if I'll ever live long enough to master it. Every day it's a different It's a different thing. Just depends on the water and the pigment and the brush, how steady my hand is, and worked with a lot of different media over the years. And some time ago, oh boy, gosh, it's probably been a good 20 years anyway, I'd come to a point in my work where I was really struggling to create something that felt fresh. It didn't just feel constricted and was lacking an expressive quality. And it was suggested to me that switching to watercolor would be a way to break out of that habit, that tight, over controlling habit, simply because watercolor resists that. You're never quite sure what it's going to do on the page. It's serendipitous. It is magical, I think. I look at it and you see the way that the paint blooms into the water and the shapes appear, and so at first it was pretty bad. It was like stick figures, and it felt like I was, you know, doing finger paints in kindergarten. But there was something entrancing about it, and I haven't set it aside. I've just taken breaks from it, but I've come back to it again and again. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to the edges where the rocks overlap the other rocks and laying in a highlight. And what that does is bring that leading edge up a little bit. I will go in with something a little bit darker, probably a dark mid-tone, and I'll put a little shadow on the other side. And what that'll do is relieve some of the flatness of this. My style has always been fairly graphic, fairly flat. Thank you, Flo. And what I have in here are just the sharpenings from a white crayon. It's a sort of a no-waste media. I mean, if you don't, the label might be a bit of waste, but there's no wood. It's all just solid pigment in a stick. So when I sharpen them, they're pretty hard, they're pretty tough. So they'll hold their point for quite a long time. And they don't require sharpening very often, but when they do, I put their shavings into a little container. White I use all the time, so I just put it in this little dish, but that can easily just be mixed with a little bit of water and then used like a paint. It is paint. So I usually leave it kind of a fairly distinct line. I let it dry down, and then I come in with another brush and I'll lift a little bit of that out. So it's over applied to start with. And each of these paintings has a little bit of a different thing than any other of them. Some of them are just they look finished after putting in the lines. I don't have to come in and do too much to them. Others will kick around on the workbench for quite some time, and I will come and then maybe grab a stack and sort through and go, okay, well, like this one. This one might want a little bit of highlights and shadows. So I might work on them over the space of I think the longest is probably just maybe couple of weeks or so. Although there's probably one in the pile that I did, 4 months ago that I might pull out and look at and think, I want to tune that one up a little bit. And that process is pretty simple. I just use my eye, right? My artist's eye that has the experience of working with this, and I can glance at it and see there might be an area that's a bit ambiguous or visually confusing. And my brain will say, well, there's a way to make an adjustment or an addition. And then at some point, I might pick up that stack and look through it and know that a painting is complete. It has everything it needs to communicate what I'm trying to communicate there. Oh, I missed 6 millimeters of a line. Oh dear. Yep, those are the kind of details that I think artists, we come back and we see the pattern, we see a little break in the pattern, and then we take a little action to just bring that art along. So you see that harsh white line there? I've let it dry down just a little bit, tiny bit of water, and just smooth it out. I'm not aiming for anything that's terribly or overly realistic. I mean, these are very stylized, so for this series of paintings, I'm going for things that are quite stylized with probably wouldn't ever find in nature, and at other times I'm working for something that is more realistic. Been working away on some of the larger paintings. And in these, I'm attempting to get a texture and a shadow, some contour. I want these to really resemble a rock you might find if you were walking along a riverbank or something like that. Not always using super drab colors. Sometimes I'm thinking about different minerals, like maybe some amethyst or some jadeite or sodalite, something along those lines. This is one of my favorites so far. I like the drama of that dark indigo. I've had a couple of questions about, so what do you do? Are you just doing little squares? No, not always. Not always. And I won't talk down on doing little squares. It's a good warm-up for working on other art, and it's also just enough in its own right. Thank you, Maya. So it doesn't take much to take that harsh edge off. So if I just left like that, it's a bit too cartoony. So clean brush, taking probably about half the water out of it. I don't want it too wet. If the brush is too wet, it will re-wet the paint. And then it'll float on that water and it'll redistribute itself, which is okay. It's, it's not the end of the world. It's, as I like to tell you, just a piece of paper. But sometimes there's some just lovely texture, and I don't want to interfere with that. I just want to soften the highlight. And at other times, let's say, I kind of like these. I'm sure I'll find one here. Well, there's a little bit of fuzziness in here. So I'm going to use more water to re-wet that ultramarine blue. And then I'll lift it out. And I've got a little more definition in that little fuzzy corner there. Sometimes if the paint gives a paint look. I mean, it is paint on paper, and sometimes it really looks like paint on paper. But I'm trying to create the illusion of looking at a pile of pebbles. So I can use the water to come in, like this area right here, this little pebble. That is just a blob of ultramarine. There's not much variation or character to it. So I'm just gonna goose it a little bit here with a little bit of water and take some of that pigment out and look for the interesting texture that I know is hiding back behind that. Now it's still wet. It'll get more character as it dries down, but you see the difference now that we've just taken that solid layer of paint off of it? So it still looks blue. It just doesn't look like a spatter of blue. I want it to look like a rock that's got some blue. And Rachel says, I love the blue. I do too. I think this one is just straight ultramarine. I also use French ultramarine, which has got a little bit of a lavender cast to it, just a half a step off from ultramarine. It is a very pleasing color, I think. Just for that, we'll make one more rock blue. Dan K, hello. How you doing? It's very good to see you. I was actually thinking about you earlier, and my thought was, I wonder what Dan K will be working on tomorrow on his. I think I've gotten this wrong a couple of times. I'm trying to get my brain trained. It's elegant woodcraft. Is that right? Woodworking. I don't know. I want to make it fancier, and just. I apologize. My brain is just so chock full of elegant woodcraft. Okay. I'm 75% trained. Yeah, there's I think we've got links in my community page to Dan's channel. He's always working on something kind of interesting and cool in his shop, and also working on getting his shop put together. That always seems to be quite a... No, stick with it. You've already got the merch going. He's got hats and t-shirts. I see him. Just my little brain works on things. I'm like, well, Dan's gonna get himself a merch shop. He's got stuff going, ready to go. You're like, oh great, she gave me more work. I came in here and she gave me stuff to do. Not today though. Today is a lot of busy stuff going on. Alrighty, I'm gonna set that one over. And one of the tricks to not overworking something is just work on it for a bit and then, rotate in something else and fiddle with that for a bit. Watercolor in particular is quite easy to overwork. I think it looks I think it looks a little bit better if you can let the paint just flow out and settle in. Otherwise, you get that look of, well, you don't know. You get the look of a lot of brush strokes just working media back and forth into the paper, out of the paper, and it's not great for the paper, for one thing. And you lose that expressive freshness that you get when you throw a little bit of water and paint on there. If I come in and brush, I'll lose all of these fine little edges where the paint bloomed into the water. So I'm kind of pushing myself a little bit. I don't like to, be too violent at the workbench of pushing or making or forcing. But I'm maybe encouraging myself to let the paint be paint and then work with what it gives me. Because I really, at the end of it, I really like the way those effects look. Oh gosh, you guys want to see some of the new stuff? I had a whole whack of new art supplies arrive this week, and I just went nuts with the old swatching and playing with the paint. And I picked up a set of the Kuretake Gansai Tambi graphite. Oh, are you telling me I even might have it handy here? There it is. So, in the palette, they look fairly drab, but when you get a bit of water in them, they have a pigment that precipitates out. Well, I'm not sure if precipitates is the right word, but sort of flows out in an even layer. And then there's literally graphite in it. And I'll just pull this little swatch card out and show you the magic thing that it... Oh, yes. I'm just second guessing my word choice here like crazy this morning. But the graphite, let me get this up here so you can see the before. It's just flat, just looks like regular paint. But when you burnish it, this has the graphite, the same stuff that's in a pencil lead. And if you've ever noticed when you've put pencil on paper, so there's a, see that sheen that comes up? It's fairly subtle. And I saw this paint and I thought, you know what? You know, you'll see a shiny rock. I think I can paint some shiny rocks with this stuff. So I got kind of excited about it and went ahead and ordered it. And I'm just getting into it here. It's just been here for a few days and I'm starting to explore it. And so far, I've just done a couple of small squares. And it's a bit of a learning curve. The graphite, if you get very vigorous with the burnishing, it'll move right out into the white part of the paper. So I stewed about that for several days, and then my brain went, it's pencil, it's graphite, just erase it. And I dug out an eraser, and sure enough, you can erase those smudges. So not sure if I have enough paint. This is half the swatches. I think we're gonna have to put me on paint buying probation here for a minute until I figure out how to use the stuff I've got. But you can't blame me. There's so many wonderful paints out there today between the Schminke, Horadam, super granulating colors, and all the Daniel Smith colors. It's just like a kid in a candy store. Oh, let's see the before. I think this is red. Yep, graphite red. And there's just a little something to it. So I couldn't paint that myself, but the paint can do the work. So I also think I am getting a lot of highlights that are on the surface of the paper because this is a cold press paper. So it's got a lot of lumps and bumps and it's machine made, so they're very uniform. But I think on some paper that had a bit of a smoother surface, um, well, I just can't wait to get some smooth paper and give it a try because I think it's going to look really cool. And that set was 6 paints for $13.50. I got it online with Dick Blick Art Materials, and I know they ship in the United States. Not sure where they ship. I know some of you are not in the United States, so. But Kuretake is a Japanese company, and they are available. You know, they export, so you might be able to find them where you are. And I think their list price runs around $20 for a set, so I can't math that out. And there's a ton of paint in each of those pans. So that is one of the things that's got me kind of thrilled and excited. And then we come to Daniel Smith's Cascade Green. This is all one blob of paint. It's not multiple colors mixed. And it's got things that precipitate out into the granulated areas that are, I would say, kind of a greenish cast to maybe a buff. And there's a sky blue and this foggy green, and it does remind me so much of the atmospheric blue here in the Pacific Northwest, so pretty fun. Just gonna geek out on paint samples here for a second. One paint, yeah. This one is called Undersea Green. But this is why I'm just saying everything's magic today. It's so interesting. It's like kelp and sand and I don't know, cool beachy things. So I may or may not have gotten a little excited about painting squares with those colors. I'm not sorry. I'm not even close to sorry about that. Played around with a little bit, some different colors of the graphite paint. Yeah, here's that undersea green again. It just does this gray blue and a buff thing and this olivey green, and you throw another layer on and it just one tube of paint. I'll have that. And I also bought some tubes of, the good old colors not found in nature. We like those too. And got my it arrived and I just looked at this big tube of paint. I bought a 15 milliliter tube of the Minnesota Pipestone, and here it is, and it's more of its mass tone. Here it is in a wash mixed with a little bit of verdigris. Here I tried it with magenta, and here with quinacridone gold. So I'm going to shout out Maya. Maya is my co-conspirator in the paint, the playing with paint game. So we'll be hanging out and doing some painting, and she'll say, "Well, look what I got today," and then I pay it back the next week with, "Look what I got today." So if you're going to have somebody who enables you, make it a fun and happy habit. It's not a complaint at all. I'm delighted, absolutely delighted. So we get up a video connection, and she's in her studio over in Norway, and I'm in my studio here in Oregon, and we just egg each other on to get into the paint and see what it will do. I'll share one last thing, and then we'll get back to the pebble paintings. So you can obtain these sheets of paper that have dots of paint on them, so that you can try out the different paint. It's not terribly inexpensive. I mean, you're talking, I think even, I have some paint that I think I paid about $3 or $4 for a tube of it. It's not terribly high quality, but to get into some decent paint, it's, $6.50 a tube. And I, yeah, I showed you my paint crimes earlier. So if you're buying stuff over the internet, it can be a little bit difficult to see what it is. Even if you're in an art store, it's in a tube. So you just rely on what's on the outside of the tube, or maybe have one of these brochures. And for me, I want to see what the paint does. These brochures are okay, but they come from a 4-color process printing operation. They're not paint on paper, and you can get some idea of the hue, but you really don't know what the character of the paint is. You don't know how transparent or opaque it's going to be. But when you get a little bit of paint, then you can play with it. So we were looking into this one right here called Zoisite Genuine. And if it just looks like a gray indescript blob to you, that is correct. That is what it is. But when we got it out and worked with it, it would have helped if I'd had this other swatch so you could see what it was. It is fairly gray. It's got a bit of a greenish cast to it. That's hematite. But we started playing with it and mixing it with a few other colors, like we've got a dioxazine violet, and here it is with Prussian blue. And when it was mixed with Prussian blue, the Prussian blue was shifted into this robin's egg or a duck egg kind of a blue. It's absolutely stunning. And the zoisite, it's actually, this paint is made from the mineral zoisite genuine. So it's ground up, like, my favorite rocks to go pick up. And the other ones in this, to give you an idea, there's serpentine and bloodstone and tiger eye and sodalite. So things that you might recognize if you went into a crystal shop, things that might be appealing, and they grind them up very finely and make them into paint. So there's particles in the paint, and when it gets wet, they're in suspension, and then those particles will move. It just depends on what it is. They all move a little bit differently. Zoisite will go to the edge of the water droplet, so it deposits this wonderful ring of dark granules around the outside, and one little drop of water just turned itself into a perfect pebble, I thought. So I was really geeking out on that. Thought that was pretty fun. We've got the Daniel Smith Aussie Red Gold mixed here, and it makes a sort of a little bit of a like yellow jasper is what I would say that looks like. And then with green gold, it looks like the mineral or the semi-precious gem. I'm so excited, my tongue's just doesn't know how to get the words out. Of peridot, the birthstone for August. So that paint that was so unassuming, that just greenish gray paint, when you put something else with it, it shifted the hue into these softer tones, and it just made this magical granulation. So That one is definitely on the list for to get in a box and come to my house. All right, thank you guys for indulging me in my enthusiasm for new paint, new art supplies. Oh, I wouldn't say that, Flo. It's an investment in your own creative supplies. You know, you've got to. You can't bake a cake without some flour and eggs and all of that. So it's true. I do. She's not lying. I do have. I've just put it on the list. It's right there. There it is. See at the top of it. And then we've got Shire Green. That's a wonderful color from Schminke. And I keep forgetting to order cerulean blue. And anyway, you can tell I'm leaving room. I've started with a nice long piece of paper, and I'm okay with that. Alrighty. Speaking of paint, let's just put some on paper. I'm gonna get these grays out of the way here. So, you want to see how the paint dots work? Let's just do a little of that. Quinacridone Deep Gold. What do we think about that one? Should we try that one? Fairly wet. Get a little drop of water on there. And this is where you would normally use some patience and wait for it. Just give it a little bit of time. You guys know, you can tell. How much patience do you think I have today? I could have more. Couldn't we always? We could always have more patience. All right. It is not quite damp enough to suit my... Oh, that's a lot of fun. Quinacridone. Quinacridone colors seem to hit the water and make a run for the edges. And each type of paint behaves a little bit differently. Some, you drop them on, they'll stay right there. This one makes these super interesting little shapes. This is Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Deep Gold. And I'll say, I'm kind of curious how it compares to Aussie Red Gold. There we go. Just dampen that paper right into submission. I had such a messy day in the studio yesterday. I had paint everywhere. Just managed to just, some days are like that. Some days you can work clean and there's no drama whatsoever, and there's other days and it's, how did I get green paint in the bathroom? Well, just me. Must have been me. This color is so beautiful, I almost hate to put it in the water and rinse it out to clean the brush. Of course, I've got the palette out of the camera frame. So this is the Daniel Smith Aussie Red Gold. And it comes up a sunnier yellow. Should we go for broke and just throw a little quinacridone gold on there? I'll just stay in that. I think all three of these are pretty close. Just a little bit different. Yep. Oh, Flo, thanks for coming in and spending time with us today. She says, all of you be well and have as much fun as you can squeeze into a day. That's lovely. Thank you. So these will be more distinct as it dries down. But from here, it seems like the quinacridone gold is pretty close to the Aussie Red Gold. Let's see that little dot. There's still tons of paint left here. So this entire card costs $5. There's 66 different colors to experiment and play with. So I thought that was a pretty good bargain. Especially if you're working on something so small. All right. So that was just a little bit of play with the watercolor dot cards that are available. Most of the companies, I think, I don't know if most of them, but a lot of them will offer these cards, and sometimes you can find them at your local art supply store, and you can certainly order them online. And I would recommend, if you're out here and you've been watching these videos, but you don't have watercolors, and I've spoken about the cost of, there's a bit of an investment to get into it. You can certainly buy a set of 12 or 24 for under $100, but that's, I'm aware that that is a substantial investment. It is for me, and I know that for some of you out there, that would be something you might have to save for a while to be able to get into. But you can get into a decent watercolor brush for under $10. And if you could find yourself one of these sheets of the watercolor dots, that would get you a lot of paint to play with for under $20. You're going to need some paper, and you're going to need, let me be more specific, you're going to need watercolor paper. And of course, now I've cleaned it right off of the workbench. Hi, buddy. There we go. So I found this brand, Fabriano, for under $10. There's 30 sheets in this pad. They're 4x8, so I can just cut them right in half and have a nice little square to work with. Hi. Are you helping? Thank you. Please don't put your claws in me. No, we don't need kitty help, but thank you. Watercolor paper it's made to absorb the water. It's to leave the pigment sitting on top. It'll very often have some texture to it. I don't know if that's going to show up terribly well. But it comes in different finishes, cold press, hot press. There's a couple of others. You can get rough watercolor paper that is just taken out of the decal, and they let it sit, and it's got wonderful little hills and valleys for the paint to pool in. It's fairly thick. This is 140 pound, or that has to do with how many sheets are in a ream of paper. It's a kind of a standard for measuring paper. But you want a paper that is a little bit thicker, because it needs to be able to handle the water that you put on when you paint. And you can try Bristol or something like that. The other thing is that when you put a brush across this and work with it, the paper doesn't pill up. It doesn't lose its fibers. It will if you keep working it, but sometimes if you're working with something like Bristol, as soon as you get it wet, the fibers start to come undone from one another, and they come up. If you're working with something that's like bond paper, you can put paint on it, but it gets distorted where there's water and not water. And it's okay for swatching stuff on, but it's really unsatisfying to try to make an artwork using a lightweight paper. So yeah, dot card, a brush, some water, little bit of paper, and you could get started. And the colors that come on those dot cards are really a wide variety. You can get some nice quality paint. So that's my tip for just giving it a try. I would say rather than buy one of those $20 um well, I bought a Royal Langnickel set for $20, and the paint that was in it was so poor quality that it was nothing but I was really frustrated with it. It cracked. It didn't have any body to it. It might as well have been tempera paint. And for $20, I could have gone to a nice little pad of paper, a brush, and a dot card. So rather than buy one of those gift sets that looks like it'll look really attractive, but the materials, the quality in them is difficult to work with. So how are we doing on time here? Oh, well, we've run over. Yeah, Maya recommends the Van Gogh paints. They're made in the Netherlands, and I got a couple tubes of those so far. Really pleased with them. And I want to say, what was that? A 10 milliliter tube for around $3.50, so very reasonably priced. I'm enjoying working with Lucas. They're made in Great Britain, and I was able to find those in half pans for $3.99 a color, so basically $4. So what do you guys think? You want to do? Should we do another pebble painting, or? I'm literally sitting here enjoying watching paint dry. Jessica Lynn, hello. Did you ask about pencil sharpeners the other day, Jessica? Was that you? And I said that there was a pencil sharpener that they come with. You can buy replacement blades. If it wasn't you, I hope it'll be somebody that comes by on Replay Crew. These are actually blades for a different brand, but you can replace the cutting blade. So, yeah, and see this little guy? You can find him in just about any stationery store. It's made by Stettler in Germany, and it's just a little machined block of aluminum. And I mean, this thing will last you. This thing will, if you buy a replacement blade, you know, after it gets a bit dulled down, there's a little screw there. You can take it off. So this is a classic artist's pencil sharpener, but it's limited. I don't know. I would bet Maya might know. They may make them with to accommodate different pencils. Oops. I don't know if I can get that to. There we go. Get a little bit of focus on it. But it's ergonomic. I mean, it's got these little, I don't know if those are knurled edges, but ridged edges, and it kind of pinches in so you can get a hold of it. And yeah. The Prismacolor one, I've heard people say that they really like that, especially for Prismacolor pencils. And those, especially if you've got a good collection of classic ones before they moved production to Mexico, the new Prismacolors, the barrel is a slightly smaller diameter. But if you've got the old ones, it's just a little bit fatter, and their dedicated sharpener works quite well for that. Anyway, as I was ratting around, I found my old one from it says made in Hong Kong on the bottom. Boy, I can't remember the last time I saw something that had a label that said made in Hong Kong, but you could probably do a whole art exhibit about our vintage pencil sharpeners. Oh, good. Jessica says that she found a Prismacolor brand pencil sharpener and also did buy one that you can unscrew and replace the blade. And yeah, those little Statler ones are not expensive. I mean, they sell them in like the little buckets of, by the gross. So, and she says, yes, I have to say, it did not wreck the pencils, at least. Well, that's half the battle. Well, wasn't that special? Managed to shake pencil shavings all over the wet paint. It's not the cat, it's me. Alrighty. I think that's going to be a no harm, no foul situation. I'll let that dry and I'll brush right off. As long as we're having fun with the art supply show and tell. Ow, buddy, please don't put your claws in me. I am not a scratching post. Should we paint another one? Let's do that. I kind of feel like painting today. If you're coming in late, we worked on a drawing earlier. Yeah. So if you're hanging out there and just watching, I would appreciate it if you could double tap this and give this little live stream a like. That does help it get pushed out to a few more people. I know there must be people who. Oh. Oh golly. Pardon me. I know there are other people out there who just really enjoy art supplies as much as I do, or there wouldn't be so many companies that make such beautiful art supplies. Right? Isn't that how it works? We have to keep up the demand if we get those companies to supply us with the goodies. That sneeze, I don't know where that thing came from. Okay, so Jessica Lynn, I have to say, colored pencils are my other. What this just doesn't. This paper is new. It hasn't been in my environment here for long, and I don't think it's had a chance to really absorb the native humidity. So it's wanting to curl. And sometimes, if you're experiencing that, just be sure to wet the paper on both sides. That helps. Yeah, and I may or may not have a bit of a colored pencil, sort of a thing happening. So I've worked with Prismacolor for years. That was my go-to pencil for a long time. If you are rolling in the bucks, the polychromos, those are really nice too. They've got a lovely texture. But if you are trying to economize, look for Smith, Binney and Smith. They make Crayola. The Crayola sets, I think they've got a big one that's like a 48. And it's not quite as pigmented as Prismacolor, but they are very blendable. They lay down a nice amount of color, and they are very inexpensive compared to the Prismacolors that are now pretty close to $3 a piece. So if you're looking for a set that's just maybe to augment what you've got, pick up a set of those and give them a try and see if you don't really enjoy working with them. And you're you're probably going to be able to find them at places like Walmart and Target, and especially at school supply time. So, which is not now, but we've got Christmas. There might be some sets. I haven't really been out shopping, but um, thank you guys. So we had a comment about the dot cards. Yeah, there seems to be quite a bit of paint on there. And Maya, I think Maya's worked with them a little bit. This is my first paint dot card, so I'm kind of new at that. But let's just take a look at your comments. I'll get that up, and then I will. Yeah, those, and there's there's a bigger set that I think it contains all of the Daniel Smith colors, and it's like $30, which that's a lot. I mean, 66, that's enough to play with for a while. 20 degrees, Jessica says it's 20 degrees where she is. What else? Oh, I have been recently working with the Albrecht Dürer artist grade coloring pencils. No, those are watercolor pencils. I like those a lot. So you can use those as a coloring pencil. They're not quite as blendable as your standard wax base, but then you've got the option to come in with a little water, and you've almost got like two media in one. So she likes a softer pencil. So if you do, like I like the texture of the Crayola ones quite a lot. Yeah, they're crazy expensive. Jessica says she tries to buy the best of the best, but nowadays, geez Louise. Um, so it's just, yeah, Crayola brand colored pencils. Are you in the States, Jessica? Or are you out of your Karen Dash? Yep. The nice thing about, I will say this about Karen Dash, is you can find the same color pencils as, there's actually a wider range in the colored pencils, but the Neo colors, I can also get the same color in a watercolor pencil with them. And they do make a highly regarded line of regular colored pencils. Good morning, Brad. Oh, Dan, Dan says he was running loud equipment and wants to know if he missed anything. Everything and nothing. That's okay. Maya. Maya says I might have thrown her under the bus. That's not possible. Oh, a set of 50 Prismacolor Junior. I've never heard of that. And there were only half of them. Well, that doesn't seem like a good deal. Yeah, there was some sneezing. Yeah. So, Brad, you sprung for the water markers. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you're okay. So, do you have Costco's out there? They do a nice set of colored pencils at the Christmas time, and they're, the tables full of gifts and stuff. I like to be able to get access to Costco at the holiday time, just to kind of uh, take advantage of that bargain. Okay. Yeah, Dan's in Pennsylvania too, and it's quite chilly out there. Sam's Club. Well, they might. I know I got a set of 48 Prismacolor back when I started out, and of course you get the set of 12 because you're young, and then you discover you can buy them open stock, and getting that set of 48, boy, Oh, those Jessica. Okay. Michael's only has sets of watercolor. Their watercolor selection is pretty limited. No open stock watercolor pencils. And that other one you're talking about there, I will visit them on a Sunday right after I'm done eating at Chick-fil-A. That's kind of what I think about that. So, what else do we have? Maya, what else did we have that I should get in here? And so many new paints that I'm sort of just. Oh, we've got. Mm-hmm. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay. More water. I do believe we are working on. This is one of the Daniel Smith colors, and I think this is undersea green. So it goes on, and it's got this quite dark character, but when it dries down, it's buff and seashore and all kinds of magical things. I'd like it if you guys could see the palette I'm working from here a little bit better. Nope, that's vertical for us. All right, we'll just rock on. This is Verona Green Earth from Lucas. It's quite a viridian cast to it, that sort of oxidized copper. Actually dot in some viridian so we can see what that's. So viridian is a little brighter. And the green, I believe, is serpentine, genuine. If you're working with granulating watercolors, be sure and get enough water in there. They need a bit of a swimming pool to disperse and make those really cool granulated effects. Yeah, why are they? I don't know. They're kind of in the same neighborhood here where I live too. So, yeah. I've heard people say that they find all kinds of things there. I just am old and cranky, and I think I need to um, exert what I can to make the world a better place. So I try to I try to spend my money at small businesses. I try to avoid trading with companies that have policies that are harmful and hurtful to people. Gosh, it is raining today, so the humidity here is quite high. And for whatever reason, the paper is so dry, it's just drinking up the water I'm putting on it. Well, that's just how it goes. We'll just add enough water to make it compliant. How's that? Okay, I picked up a new one called Magnesium Green. New color. It's a lovely hue, and it is just absolutely flat. These are textured. Not fun. It's nice and turquoisey. We don't always want paints to have a lot of granulating effects, because sometimes we're just trying to paint a nice smooth field of color. So I'm learning to try to embrace the different colors for what they bring. I will say it can be a bit daunting because of the way each color does its own thing, behaves in its own way. But the more you work with it, the more you figure out the qualities of the paint, and your brain will just think of ways to make use of it. I think I've got Lunar Blue in the middle. This one in the corner was Lucas Lavender. Lunar Blue includes a pigment, PBK11, which is Mars Black, and it's fairly granulating. And then the blue in it is a phthalo blue, so that should, as Maya says, should travel, flow out to the edges of the water, and those little granules of the Mars Black or an iron oxide black will create some of that grainy texture. Brad, what are you up to today? It's good to see you. You made it through the week. There's so many choices here. I think, shall we drop a little quinacridone magenta in here and just embrace the chaos? Oh, let's. Oh, maybe not embrace it quite that hard. So just drop the tags into the wet white paint. Because if you're going to spatter, let's just make the brightest pink in the box. Well, the next to the brightest pink in the box. Oh, good. I was hoping you were home for the week. But having the trucks unloaded and being headed home is almost as good. That's quinacridone. That's what I'm talking about when I say it runs for the edges of the water. So just dotting it on, and it just wants to go out and make the world bright magenta. It's kind of fantastic. Restraint. Restraint. Okay. Rinse the brush before I do any more any more damage here. Oh, Barbara, hello, welcome in. Lovely to see you. We're playing with new paints here. I had been I was joking with somebody the other day. It's not so much of a joke. I've just been kind of pinching my pennies all year and trying to get a little money saved. And so I did my budget at the beginning of December and went, oh, I've done very well. The eating rice and beans has paid off, and I had some mad money to spend on art supplies. So I ordered a whack of art supplies, and they came in the last week, and we've been playing with the new paint. New paint, right? It's not just me. We love it. We love the new paint. Here's the drawing we started with. Oh, that sounds like wonderful fun. Drop Short Media says he's going to an Indonesian party tomorrow. I am envious because you will probably, there'll be food, delicious Indonesian food. We got onto the dot card with the, oh, don't let me forget, I don't have to. Quinacridone Deep Gold is the dark one in the middle. And then I splashed on some chaos. That's all right. We'll figure that one out. Some touches of the Aussie red gold, and then just quinacridone gold. That's the one that's kind of fading down here. So you see, as it dries down, it really changes character a bit. And then, like, it's not dry. It'll continue to metamorphose. Metamorphize. It's gonna change. It's gonna change even more as it comes fully dry. So, yeah. Oh, that's. Don't believe it. Maya is not that. Maya's a good influence. She might have cost me a little money, but boy, did she save me time. And you can't buy time, so yeah, Tampa Bee Man just got a grinder for her stained glass. Can't wait till Christmas. Wonderful. Yeah. You mean the quinacridones are similar to inks? They really are. There's an intensity and a vibrancy to them that's hard to beat. And they're wonderfully transparent. So, oh, I have more paper. Yeah, it just, it's still, I've noticed some of these Primatech colors take a bit of time to dry down, which facilitates the granulation process. So, but it certainly tries my patience a bit. I'm just going to take advantage of that to move the move the paint across, and that will leave us some of those wonderful edges that are so fun to trace around when we're doing the pebble paintings. So, gosh, I really am falling in love more and more with that Verona. Verona Green Earth is the name of the color. It's from Lucas, and it's just got this quality that reminds me of a piece of polished glass that you pick up if you're lucky enough to find one on the beach. I love that color. You know you've been having fun when you start looking for places to set the things to dry. No face. A hot pocket sounds pretty good right about now. Those things always do kind of blow up in the microwave, don't they? What's with that? It does. It looks like pepperoni grease a little bit in a good way. Now we'll see if I can just get some paint on these without fiddling around too much. I'm gonna throw down a little Prussian blue. Just shout out Manning 8 this morning. He's been doing some really helpful stuff in the community that he works in. So, oh, this is Prussian blue, wonderful. There's nothing quite like it. It's just on the edge of turquoise, and it's, for blue, I think it's very luminous, which, you know, it's easy to see a luminous character in colors that are warm. Not as easy, I think, you know, because there's a natural warmth, right? And the blues tend to be cooler, but I think this is each company, you know, Prussian blue is a common color. I think most paint lines probably carry a Prussian blue, but the intensity of it varies from company to company. And this is a vintage tube of paint, probably from the 70s or 80s, Grumbacher Academy. And this particular pan of paint is just darker and richer than my contemporary versions. So I probably still have a lifetime and a half supply, but oh yeah, I'm just future tripping and getting melancholy about the day I'll run out of this particular tube of Prussian blue. Always a challenge to be mindful. Tampa B Man says Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray. You know, I love this portion of the program. You don't say. Oh, good thing I didn't dip into that one. I thought that was our... Give me a second here. Yep. Get a little extra water on this so that the paint can move. Oh, under the chat. This is Payne's Gray. This is the Payne's Gray magic. Can you see why Barbara enjoys Payne's Gray so much? This is the Lucas, Lukas version of Payne's Gray. Yeah, Maya has been teaching me this week about paints that some that stay at home and some that are travelers. So I may or may not have been playing with this one earlier, which is why I knew to put a big splash of water down on the paper. And that's just so much fun. Brad is asking. Brad has just made a purchase of some art supplies. He was able to take advantage of a great sale on some water-based markers. And he's asking, do I need to swatch them? Do you need to swatch them? It's a different question from, would you enjoy swatching them? I would enjoy swatching them, but I will say when it comes to markers that they tend to be fugitive. Ow! Good grief. Oh my goodness. Cat put her claws into me like I was a scratching post. Because they're fugitive, you can do yourself, a nice big chart or some of those circles. And, you come back to it in a few weeks and the colors might very well have shifted. So with media that can be a bit ephemeral like that, I tend to swatch a group of colors at the beginning of the project, find some things that work together, and I'll do a lot of like smaller informal swatches. But when you're getting to know your materials, and especially these, I know you haven't worked with the markers before, it might be useful to you to get a good like 12 by 18 sheet of paper, whatever you've got, a nice big sheet, and go ahead and use that. I know you have the template, the circle template, and just go ahead and draw a bunch of circles and start to lay some colors in. And then what you don't need something on paper. What you need is a mind map of where those colors are. You need to have some sort of a color vocabulary in your mind. So what can help you to achieve that is to scribble those colors out, put them next to each other, see how they work, see what your eye is drawn to. And then, rather than trying to just do a whole color chart, when you see something that inspires you, and you might say, this green and this golden orange and this pink look like a tulip. Go and make a tulip. So um, don't lock yourself into making a big formal color chart for the type of media that are ephemeral. It's just not worth your time. Um, Swatch things to a piece of paper alongside where you're working, and if you come into it in a more playful way, I think you'll have more joy in using that media. That would be my advice. Well, they. Oh, you were so oppressed, Brad. You're so oppressed with these people in your life that make you make some art. It's terrible. It's just terrible for you. Yeah, Barbara has a suggestion. She uses the free paint swatch cards at paint stores in white and then use them for your swatches. Oh, do they bird dog you through the store? It's a paint swatch, lady. You know, you can order a packet of those at some stores. They will sell you, like, you can buy them by the packet, which is, um, that's a fun way to go. So, have you guys been watching this? Did you see it? So it started and it had these wonderful blooms, but then as it begins to dry down, it's smoothing out, which is just, it's kind of lovely. That is Payne's Gray. That is a classic watercolor painter uh, color that was put together by, I don't know his first name, but his last name was Payne. And it is a mixture of 3 pigments. So your PR 176, that's a red. My brain's not coughing up the name of it. It's not a cadmium red, but it's a classic. It might be like a naphthol red or something in that. There's a classic middle of the road red. PB 15-1 and black number 7, which I think is ivory black. So it's a black, a blue, and a red mixed together. And it makes this lively gray that you look at, and your eye is just trying to sort it out. And instead of just being a washed out black, the red and the blue give it some energy. So it's quite lovely for shadows and clouds and seascapes and those sort of classic British subjects for watercolor painting. Now the Prussian blue, you see, it's moving out into the areas, and it's making these little beautiful little feathery shapes. Whereas the Payne's Gray is moving out, and it's fairly smooth. So if you are making these squares and you have a it reaches a point and you just go, I really love that, you can fix it. You can use a heat tool and blow air on it. If you let it just naturally dry, it's going to be more diffused and more smooth. But it may be like at the point where it had the blasts of color that were going out. If I had taken a heat tool to it and evaporated the water, I could have caught that moment. Yeah. Yep. Alrighty. Oh, gosh. I was kind of shooting for 2 hours, but we've got a good dozen of you in here, so let's just do a pebble drawing to finish up. I love to just kind of keep going on when there's folks here, so. Just hate to wrap up. So let's don't. Let's just keep going. Oh, let's come back to this. What do you think? We did kind of a dark one earlier. How about this one? We haven't done one in this color range for a while. So I spent time rearranging the colors and getting everything into new palette boxes, and I have not quite put together where everything lives in my mind and where it's at. You know, it's in the palette, I know where that's at, and then what I need to do is get my mind to just naturally have a little bit more of a sense of where the paints are in the paint box, so I can dip into them without, you know, having to go and search for them. That can be a little frustrating. Okay. I think what we've got here is the Piemontite Genuine with a few touches of probably quinacridone gold. You know, I've got to brutalize the paper a little bit to get it to lay down smooth and flat, not give us too much trouble. Some good high quality watercolor paper is actually made of cotton fiber, so it's almost a little bit like almost like a textile. Alrighty. That's Brad says it's hard being an artist in training, and Barbara replies, every artist is in training. True words. Yeah, and Barbara says Payne's gray is extremely transparent. So that's the lovely quality of it. It lets the light reflect off the whiteness of the paper. Some paints are more opaque, and by opacity, this is what I mean. This paint, really opaque. This paint, really transparent. So there's not much light reflecting back off the whiteness of the paper. With the Payne's gray, we get a beautiful reflectance. So that imparts a luminous quality to your paintings. Okay. Did you? All right. Thanks, Maya. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. All right. So, I'll just sketch a few pebbles and I'm like, this pen seems to be out of ink, and yep, because it's not a new one. The new ones have got a green dot on them. Too big, too small. Boy, I'm Goldilocks. Wrong color. Oh, well, I already started with black. Green, definitely the wrong color. 03, black. There we go. Sorry for the rattling. Yeah. So Brad's just been making creative friends all over the place, and it's one thing I love about artists and creative people, that they're very often willing to they're always willing to share the enthusiasm, and if you can find them that are willing to share the techniques, uh, and a lot of artists really are, that's that is a wonderful friendship to have in life. Hi, buddy. What? You ate cat food 2 hours ago. And you get cat food every 6 hours. She's giving me a look like it is the most adorable cat look of, I can't tell time. How can you expect me to tell time? Bring me cat food. Gail, hello. It's lovely to see you. Yeah, I'm glad you were just here. You know, just peopling, right? Interacting. It can take a bit of a chunk out of our energy, and abiding quietly is a absolutely a legitimate way to be. As I've come to the diagnosis of being autistic rather late in life, and I'm learning so much about the ways that we can manage our nervous system. And, you know, we're all human. We all have a nervous system. Everybody's got a bit of a different set point for what amount of interaction they can handle without needing to go home and take a 18-hour nap. I used to think I was just not trying hard enough to interact, and now I understand that my nervous system is just has a particular capacity to tolerate demands, right? You can meet some demands, whether it's to go, you know, deal with navigating through a grocery store and all the noises and all of the people and smells, sights, sounds, and chaos. And, you know, there's some other people out there who they can just pop out, grab groceries, and they do it 3 times a week. They're happy to do it. And, you know, sometimes just ordinary activities can be taxing. So it's okay to figure that out and to know when it's time to rest a little bit, or to pull back, sit, watch, rest. That's what replenishes us and helps us to be more resilient when we do have to do activities that demand a lot of our energy. I keep stopping to just look at the color and admire it. So, uh, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Gail, but I'm glad to hear that you are on the mend. She's just been under the weather. We've had quite a few people kind of in the community who've just been coping with flu, and there's a bit of a letdown after we get through Thanksgiving, and our immune systems get challenged by stress. So it's no surprise that colds and viruses and things like that can take advantage of us when our immune systems are a bit taxed. Yeah, guys. you won't mind. Just throw a little love in the chat for Gales to be feeling better soon. Dan K says, my people meter is about 20 minutes, then I get annoyed and want the people to go away for the rest of the week. Yeah, there are a lot of things I like for an hour at a time with a week in between. And, you know, if I'm related to them, it might be 30 minutes at a time with a month in between. Just me? I feel like we're becoming culturally more able to have our needs acknowledged. We're more able to say, "Oh, I'm just gonna, yeah, that sounds lovely, but um, I'm gonna have to do that next time because now I need to rest, or I have some other things planned. Gonna stay at home and read a book or do some yoga or do some art." And there was certainly a time within my lifetime where people with autism were just taken from their families or surrendered by their families to live in institutions where they weren't even offered things like speech therapy or opportunities for an education. They weren't allowed to be part of society. And now we've reached a point where we recognize and appreciate all sorts of people with all kinds of nervous systems and all kinds of ways of being. So that recognition has allowed everybody to have, at least to have a conversation about what our needs are as we are in stressful times. And, you know, we're in December, we're in the midst of it, so if you sometimes feel like, oh, I just can't, I'm just not built to take this, you might not be, and that's okay. You might just be built to just have a smaller portion of it. And you also might just be one of those people that we call a social butterfly that just spends time with other people and they're energized. They come home, they come away from that, and they just are sharp and bright, and their minds are warmed up, and some others of us come away from it, and we need to have peace and quiet so everything can reset. And both of those ways of being are they're just human. They're perfectly acceptable on either end of the spectrum. Well, that one came together nicely, I think. All right, let's check the chat. And, oh, good. Dan says, yeah, related people, definitely half the time. Good. Oh, I so appreciate you in chat here, Dan. Um, Gail, I'm so glad you popped into the chat, Gail, and that we were able to give you a little bit of encouragement there. All right. So, what have we got there, Maya? Yeah, Maya says in the old days, everyone who didn't follow the norm had a hard time being a part of the community. Thank goodness we have moved past that. We're moving. We're making progress. Brad. Yep. Indeed, it's nice that being left alone seems to be the norm anymore. Well, yeah, boy. That since 2020, boy, it just broke things where I live, so sometimes a little bit too much being left alone. Oh, Brad says, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. Yeah, PTS for life. Just sent you pictures of some new art supplies. No, Maya. Maya and I are not going to say anything about that, are we? We don't know what you're talking about. Oh, the sea ice is smooth, but yeah, the paint just makes these wonderful lines at the dry edges here. Just a splash of water and just a touch of paint. Pretty cool. So we definitely have the darker one is still distinct, and then this brighter one that's popping out, that is the Aussie red gold. The soft yellow to the background is quinacridone gold. So Jessica's gunner's ears go up when cat says meow here. It's it's kind of um it's kind of funny. Sometimes when Maya and I are live streaming, she's got a dog that keeps her company, and he'll bark a bit. And I think my cat might have lived in a house where there were some dogs before. I got her at a shelter, so we don't really know too much about what her situation was, but she will sometimes, when there's a dog uh, that she can hear, she'll jump up on my lap and purr, so I think my cat might be a dog person. Yeah. Those little speckles and granules. This one's still damp. I can't wait to start pebble drawing on that one. So I've been camped out on this sort of special one here. It's a little bit different from the usual. I laid the paints on and mine was just usually, I mean, you've seen me work. I usually just sort of let the brush just go wherever, let the water go wherever. On this one, I was more deliberate with the way I was placing the pigment on the paper. I was um, thinking of those pebble shapes. And this this square is covered with the Primatech paints that are made from minerals. So go with one of the newer pens. I picked up a box of the Accurate is the brand. They're made in China. They're nothing terribly fantastic, but they're supposed to be permanent acid-free, non-fading pigment ink and micron. So thought I'd give them a try. I like them. I like the way the ink lays down. It's nice dark ink. Pen's not quite as comfortable on the finger because it's got some kind of, well, it's not terribly sharp. I've actually had pens that were worse, but it could be a little smoother on that ridge. But again, cost savings, so yeah. Brad says, offers an invitation of, does anyone want to keep Brad company this weekend on a swatching live stream? That sounds like delightful fun. I'm there. Really? Do you want? I'll put the camera down on you. She hates the camera. Sure. Get together with friends and do art? Yes. What do you have in mind, Sunday or Saturday? Hi, Sophia. I knew. The longer we hang out, the more people come in and say hello. And I like that. Ow! That's a no. I say that like I haven't had cats for 20 years, and like I think no will work. Ay, ay, ay. She had a rough start wherever she came from, and she is extremely averse to having her nails clipped. I have to wait for her to take a nap and then sort of wake up and be like sleepy, relaxed kitty, and then I can sneak in and I can usually get maybe, sometimes it's only one nail at a time. And then she is just um, impossible. And I've wrapped her like a burrito in a towel a time or two, and she is. I've never had a cat that had such a memory as this one. So she will sulk around the house for days after I do that. So, buddy, it's not lunchtime. I'm sorry, it's not lunchtime. And a couple of times I've just taken her to the vet where they just, take 3 vet assistants and do it, and she screams her head off. They're not hurting her, but she just has that reaction of, I will try to scare you with my big screamy meow. That's the culprit. And anyway, So then she's really ticked off at the vet staff, you know, but she comes home and then she tells me how awful the vet staff were, and I'm not the bad guy. So we sometimes just resort to doing that. And I've been thinking if I can't get that front paw down to a dull blade, we might have to make a little $25 trip to the vet to, yeah. Any tips? If you guys have any tips. Well, yes, Brad says he's a dog person. He likes cats, but they're just weird. Indeed, they are. That's their charm. So I think what's happened here. Please believe me. I'm not starving my cat. I brought home a new flavor of the cat food. She's got some dietary needs, and she doesn't can't eat a whole bunch of stuff. But they had a new roasted chicken flavor, and it's instead of being pate, it's little cuts of. And that to her, it's got to be a treat because it's something that's new, and the poor thing has to kind of eat the same thing all the time. And so I think she is just thinking about the new chicken cat food. And because when I put down the other styles that she's been used to, she just kind of looks up at me like, really? Come on, human. I told you. I want fancy roasted chicken and sauce. It must be hard, being a cat, apparently. That's the story she tells. It's extremely. Is it? It's hard. You're okay. I might just have to, I guess I could maybe just give her like a spoonful out of the packet several times a day when she says she wants a treat. Because what I've been doing is letting her just one of the packets is the fancy new flavor. And if I start the first feeding of the day, she's diabetic, so she gets 4 small meals throughout the day. And if I start her with that, and then at lunchtime she's like, nope, I think I want that other chicken. Oh my golly. Wait a minute. She's a cat. I think I just broke my own brain. Um, uh, this is the thing about cats. If you give them the same cat food and you're like, you've been eating it, you've loved it, it was fine. Today, why won't you eat your cat food? Maybe I just need to feed her the new version for every meal of the day. And knowing cat psychology, it probably won't take too many days before I put it on her food dish and she just looks at me like, what the hell is this? What are you trying to get? Why would you put that in front of me? Oh, okay. I think I think we may have a new strategy. I'm gonna try that because this howling for cat food all day is it's getting on my nerves. I love her. She's adorable. She's the floofy love of my life here. But oh my goodness. Stop with the claws and the yelling. What do you guys think? Is that a good strategy? Should I give that a try? You're not wrong, Brad. Brad says he believes that cats do things just to annoy humans. Yeah. Barbara says, one thing I don't miss is trimming my English bulldog's nails. Bless her sweet, stubborn little heart. Yeah. Uh, well, Brad asks if I consider myself a crazy cat lady. I've had cats sequentially. We did have We did have Sweet Decker, who somebody in the neighborhood got evicted from their house on uh, Christmas Eve a few years ago, and when they left the cat behind. And I came out, and it was miserable weather. It was just raining, and the cat was on my back deck, and she was a void, a big black cat, and she hadn't had good vet care. She was pretty rough shape by the time she came to me, and she was with us for a while, for mm, a bit of time, and she never wanted in the house. She always just liked to stay out on the back deck. So we did have calling her Decker because she was, which cat are you talking about? The one on the deck. Oh, the Decker the deck cat. Um, so I think to be a crazy cat lady that you need to have multiple cats. And the cat distribution system just went, this is kind of an old cat in rough shape, and she needs a place to spend her final days. And towards the end, she did come inside. She'd never really wandered in the house. And of course, Miss Hauser was very. Were you mean to Decker? Were you ornery to her? Did you hiss at her every time you walked past? Uh huh. She did. But Decker was pretty unperturbed. She just stayed in the kitchen, and she loved a cardboard box or three. And Miss Hissy Pants would just kind of walk past and. Why were you so ornery? Just in proportion to your cuteness. As cute as she was just that ornery. So, you know, may or may not have a diagnosis or three. And am I a lady? Well, fuck no. That's just a. That's just a. That's a bar I'm not even willing to jump for. No, so I think the answer to your question is when all the final calculations are made. No, not a crazy cat lady. I will cop to being a curmudgeon for sure. I just I just looked up to see how many people just left when I dropped that. We now have 3 more people with us. So there's no disincentive to uh, be myself, I guess. This one's fun. That's a little bit of a different composition than we usually have. You have 4. Nice. All right. Brad, thanks for spending some time with us. Yeah, I look forward to streaming with you on this weekend. We'll figure out a fun way to do some swatching. Yeah. Yeah, Maya suggests that I'm maybe more like a crazy paint lady. Yeah, that. Well, Dan, we got to keep them on their toes somehow. We just don't do it in the first 5 minutes of the live stream. It wasn't. I was thinking about telling a story about it, but I think let's skip that one. I'll just use a little bit of discretion today. Just a modicum. Uh, that would be a new twist on things, Brad. definitely. I know I'm running, we're running into the third hour here today. I I am amenable to that. Brad is asking if Jeff if Jeff can join us. I certainly, yes, absolutely. More art the merrier. Um, but I want to avoid anything that turns into like a 3 or 4 hour um, sort of a marathon, because I am mindful not to uh, hold people hostage on these ridiculous live streams. And some of them can just get out of hand time wise. So let's talk about it ahead of time, what sort of a time frame we want to put on that. And that will help me to um, have some expectations about my energy output. Because once I start a group live stream or a panel like that, I do like to hang out, and an hour and a half, 90 minutes of energy is really different than a longer period. So how's that sound? 2 hours max. Yep. Okay, that sounds really good. Yeah, see if he wants to, or for part of it, or whatever, and yeah, if that's okay with Maya and Jeff, or any. Please excuse me, those of you out there, for making social plans in front of you. And yeah, we will. It looks like we will be putting together an art stream with the 2 to 3 of us doing some art this weekend. So when we get the times and whatnot firmed up, I'll put a little post on the my community tab for that. And I hope you all will join us for a bit of that if you've got some time. It's always I always learn something. It's almost like an art class, but in a good way. All right, rest well, Brad. Enjoy that Indonesian party. That sounds like just I'm so interested in any kind of exotic to me cuisine. So ow, ow, down, please. No toes. Can you put your toes away? Can you? I know you know how to do that. She actually knows quite a few things. She knows kitty up and pretty smart little cat. And I will tell her to put her toes away, and she does retract her claws some of the time. So I know she knows what it means. I know there are other times where I'll tell her that, and she looks at me like, oh, I don't think so, human. I, I don't think I want to do that at all. Oh, Sophia asked Barbara, "Isn't 4 cats more the starter pack for the cat lady gig?" And cats understand; they just don't care. Yeah, precisely. Alrighty, there it is. I always think, is that the last little pebble? I can get a couple tiny ones in right over here. Yep. Yeah, we could get a couple more right in here. I think that's a pretty nice group. I was planning to come back in on this with the second wash of color and add in more details and texture to it. Probably not a lot. Probably not a lot. Shall we tour the accomplishments today? Just got stuff just set off everywhere here. I don't know if we've got. Where's our big drawing? Oh, there we go. We started here to what a video is about on my list of live streams. I do try to do a little art show at the end, so you can usually skip if you're curious about what's going to be worked on, or if you want to. Sometimes I kind of, at the beginning we don't really know where it's going to go, but if you like to see what's going to happen, if you want to see if there's something that catches your interest, by all means skip to the last 5-10 minutes and you'll see an art show where I give you a little bit of a look at the work that we did. And then if you see something that's interesting, then you can go back and watch the video. If it's not catching your eye, find something that does. There's a ton of videos. We're getting close to 100 on my page, and certainly the big wide world of the YouTube art scene. And that's okay. I like that you might spend your time in ways that are worthwhile to you. So that's just a little trick. I think my early ones I might not have been so conscientious about doing the end of the stream art show, but certainly the last 50 probably run a bit of an art show at the end. And I think we'll wrap up here. Any last questions? Drop them in the chat. Yep, that was the Prussian blue. So that's layer 1. I'll come back in with another color. Pondering. I think what I'm going to do on this one is some of the Primatech colors with the neutral earthy tones. Here was our piece that we did using some dots of paint off the Daniel Smith watercolor, 66 colors to try. Information about their different products on the back. $5 if you can find one of these. Oh, a lot of fun that. Thumbs up on that. And thumbs up on this if you wouldn't mind. You can just double tap the screen if you're watching it in the vertical feed. And that'll give me a like, and I really appreciate that so much. Not as much as I appreciate you folks coming in and chatting and hanging out. That is just where it's at. I love that. I love how you guys just hang out and buoy each other up. Why, thank you. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Barbara, Maya. Jessica Lynn, I'm so glad you were able to pop back, and we have the old discuss the pencil sharpener. We got to revisit and answer that question. Hey, Antics. Cats understand. Alrighty. And then here's our last one. We got some stuff done this morning, didn't we? Alrighty. Thank you again. If you're on Replay Crew, thank you for watching and taking the time to hang out with us. Boy, we didn't even need that fidget, did we? I've had one in my pocket this month. That's just been a bit wild. Take care of yourselves. Take those timeouts, and it's okay to say no thank you to stuff that is just you over the edge. I'm going to try to practice that myself a bit. And yeah, Dan, I didn't see. Are you going to be doing a live stream on elegant woodcrafting? We might have actually got it in my brain there. I just gonna hang out a second here because I bet there's a bit of a delay on this. Yeah. Elegant Woodcrafting does a, oh, wonderful. Woodcraft. No ing. No ing on the woodcraft. Thank you so much for your patience on that. I'm just remedial on learning that name. I'm absolutely cop to it. It just takes me time on some things. Yeah, so will it be are we finishing up the fishing pole, the rod holder? Or we just never know. It's been cutting boards and jewelry boxes and these wonderful Christmas trees, little miniature, well, 2 feet tall. That's not exactly miniature, but it's certainly smaller than a big tree. Spiral wood trees that he's been working on, so recommend that. Alrighty. Okay, here we go. Here's the answer we were waiting for. Dan is going to make a step stool tomorrow. He needs an easy project to let his brain rest. Excellent. Excellent. Well, thanks everybody again. Thank you, Maya, for your help. And for everybody, thank you for your arty inspiration. We'll see you on the next live stream. Bye for now.